Yes,
please.
Yes.
Translate this last question.
Yes. The question is the continuation of the subject. How can we prove or show the truthfulness of the claim of the promised Messiah from the Holy Quran?
From the Holy Quran, there are so many ways and angles from which we can prove the truth of the Holy Prophet, promised Messiah. You see, the fact is that all the signs are the truth of prophets, whether they are small or big, basically belong to the same category. Because La nufarriqu bayna ahadin min rusuli also means this, that we don't see any, although it's the word of those who believe, but if God had made differentiations, some with different types of proofs, some with different types of proofs, then those who viewed this could not have said La nufarriqu bayna ahadin min rusuli. Then there would be tafriq on this and that, and so many categories from the point of view of what they bring in support of them, or what happens to them, would be brought forward, and a man could not claim like the claim made and attributed to Rasulullah and his companions. Now from this I am going to categorize. For instance, this is a universal thing. All the prophets of Allah, before they have made a claim, are not only innocent in the eyes of those who know them from close quarter, but they are marjuween, those about whom high expectations are pinned. Society looks up at them. You know, it's great people, rising stars, and they always respect them, and without fail they never find fault in their character prior to the claim. Now, as far as the history of prophets is preserved by the Holy Quran, we see this applicable everywhere. Whatever they said against Noah was after he had claimed. Whatever they said against Saleh was after he had claimed. Whatever they said against Abraham or any other prophet was always after they had claimed to be from God, never before. But one moment when they claimed to be from Allah, what a transformation in the attitude of the people. They completely go topsy-turvy in their mind, in their attitudes, and that man, who was man of the highest expectation before, suddenly becomes the worst of the society. That one man who could never be blamed for any lie whatsoever, never in his life before he was prophet, or he claimed to be from Allah. Suddenly all sorts of lies are attributed to him, and he's also described as having forged things against Allah. So this is the basic character of a type of proof. I say it's not a character of the Prophet, it's a character of a type of proofs which is applicable to all the prophets of Allah alike. And there are others as well. After they make a claim, then the whole society abandons them. Even the next of kin abandon them. And there is no party of strong people from among the society to support them. Those who make a claim with the support of a group from among themselves are never prophets of Allah. We don't see a single account of any prophet who claimed with the support of a large group behind him. You'll find large groups behind Musalma Kazzab, Ansi, what was his name? Aswad Ansi, and so on and so forth. But never in the history of prophets you will find that a prophet comes out along with a party, a group, strong group in an area, a clan. On the contrary, his own family members reject him, except for one or two solitary exceptions. That happens in every case. In case of Abraham, his nephew, except in case of Hazrat Rasulullah Sallam, his cousin, then he did it. So this is another type of proof that they reject him outright, and there is no tribal or clannish support behind him. And in case of false claimants, even those who claimed of Imam Mahdi later on, you'll always find some clannish support behind them. But then comes another. Allah does not abandon them. The whole world does, but Allah does not. Despite the fact that they are rendered totally powerless, support comes from heaven, and they go on growing against all odds, against all opposition and hostility. Instead of becoming smaller, they become larger and larger. And yet the enemy says, we are going to win. And the answer is, how could you win? أَفَلَا يَرَوْنَ أَنَّ نَاطِي الْأَرْضَ نَنْقُصُهَا مِنْ أَطْرَافِهَا أَفَهُمُ الْغَالِبُونَ. How stupid they are. They claim they are going to emerge victorious. Because the Muslims are small. The believer and his companions are small once they grow. But don't they see that every time we compete with each other, we come into clash, their soil is lost and ours increases. When the territory of the enemy at every encounter becomes smaller, how can he claim that he would win? It's so mad. In the Quranic arguments, there's such beauty. A small thing is said apparently, but when you study it, then you find it is an invincible thing, irrefutable argument. And this is what happens in case of every prophet of God. They begin with nothingness. They grow from nothingness to something to something bigger. And the course of their progress has never been reversed by the enemies. So there are these categories. If you would like me to further elaborate these things, I'll come turn by turn, and there are many others as well.
If you permit me to translate
Yes, please.
this, we want to explain everything.
Okay, inshallah, we'll come to that. First of all, we begin with this beginning, as I said.
Yes, Hadar.
You see, when Hazrat Masih Maud claimed that he had been appointed by God, Masih ibn Maryam, and he had come to fulfill that prophecy in his spirit and in his character, although his soul and spirit were different. He was a different person. But he said, this is how the prophecies are fulfilled. An old prophet of Allah who is known to have claimed that he would come again, or others who expect him to return to earth, never come back. There is not a single exception. Examine the entire horizon of religious history. People claim that someone would come, but never see the face of that man again. So it does not mean the prophecies, all of them are wrong. It means the stupid people who do not recognize when they come, they are wrong. No one comes in person, no one returns physically himself. But there always is someone who comes to fulfill the prophecy. Like Elia came to fulfill the prophecy. Like Yahya came to Hazrat Yahya alayhi salam, came to fulfill the prophecy regarding Eliya's return to earth. So he explained this all to the people and said, I do not claim to be the same Messiah who happened to be the Messiah of Israel. I am the Messiah of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I am going to fulfill the same task in his ummah as was fulfilled by the earlier Messiah in the ummah of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. When he claimed this, when he claimed that he was Al-Imam Al-Mahdi, whose advent had been prophesied by Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah himself. The entire world of Islam which was supporting him, seemed to have gone berserk. They lost balance. They seemed to have gone mad with anger. What have you done? What's your claim? And one and all the great ulama of the time, in the beginning, as a first reaction, declared that he is a pakka kafir, about whose kufr there is not the slightest possible doubt. He is kafir of the first degree. He is a kafir of a class in himself. The one who is not just a kafir but who is an impostor, who wrongfully attributes things to Allah which He never told him. So he is a impersonator of Jesus Christ. He is not the real one. And went on building their fatwa, their edicts against him, to the result ultimately that they said his life is forfeit. According to these edicts of Islam and the Holy Quran, anybody who kills him will not be held answerable in the sight of Allah. So go ahead and help yourself. Shed his blood, and this is piety. This was the nature and intensity of the hostility which followed this claim. Overnight, what had happened? Now, the interesting thing is, this happens to every prophet. Why? This is the big question. How can it help their message? How can it help to prove their truth if those who are friends of yesterday suddenly become the enemies of the the most bitter and convicted enemy, most bitter and dedicated enemies of his message? What does he gain? What does the truth gain from this? Let's first resolve this question, because it's a question which has to be asked in relation to Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah himself as well. Why did God put him to such trial? It is related to the first question which I raised, his previous popularity. If a man has that popularity, and if it is that popularity which has gone into his head, then it is quite likely that he would make tall claims. And the people later on would think a man became popular and he made a claim, like many false claimants have done it. But then God completely draws a line of distinction between the true prophet and the false ones. He let the people withdraw their support of popularity. And now he rises in his true color and character. This man, who was surrounded by a mist of possible doubts, he's such a popular man, maybe he thinks, let me become the very top in the world of religion and claim to be Allah's prophet to add to the popularity. Maybe he's a selfish person. But when every support is withdrawn, when he is left alone and bare, in a society which has transformed into a type of hostility which is seldom seen elsewhere in the world, everybody becomes bloodthirsty, and he's alone. Then what happens? If he had been a false man, he would immediately withdraw his claims, like the politicians do. If a statement is attributed to them which they think would make them popular in the sight of the people, and then suddenly they see the negative reaction strong, it's very strong negative reaction, and they go, oh God, what we had done. We made a statement which was not popular. So next morning the statement appears. It was not this which I said, it was that which I said. It was not this, it was that. But they can't prove it. Sometimes this is done also by people who are true. but they have full proof. In case, in my case recently, I gave a long interview to a representative of Nawai Waqt here in London, who promised and who swore to Allah that I'll be true and honest, and I'll have it published verbatim, word for word. So I said, all right. He took the interview and completely changed it and made a small statement which was so vicious that it created an extremely negative and wrong image of Ahmadiyyat and myself. And then I had to issue a statement of contradiction, because I had the proof with me. You see, I had got this interview fully recorded, and I have that tape. And I threatened the paper, if you do not immediately publish this statement, then I'm going to have this tape played in the MTA. And you can't stop it. So next morning they published that statement of negation. I'm just telling you, sometimes it happens that they attribute false things. But this is a different story. When they make a claim, the uproar against them is so threatening that if the true prophets of Allah were not true, if they were like the ordinary politicians, they would immediately eaten their words and said, look here, forgive us, for God's sake, this is not what we meant. This is the character of a popularity seeker. But those who do it for the sake of truth, they do not care. Now they look at their past, popular past, and look at the unhappy, apparently, the most unpopular future, and they prefer to belong to future, because in this happiness lies the happiness of Allah. What better proof could we require? But the blind do not see. First let it translate, and then I'll apply it to Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam. Now Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam, before he claimed, fitted this description perfectly. He was a man in his childhood who was withdrawn to himself and is recluse. He was not a man to display himself to the people. He was a God-fearing person, young boy who would go out and serve the cause of the poor, and nothing else was heard about him except that he would feed the poor from his own share of food which he received from his family, and go to the mosque and spend most of the time in the mosque, or study religion and Islam and also other religions to compare. That was his life. Nobody knew him, even much in Qadian. So much so that once a Sikh leader from around the whole of the area around Qadian was mostly Sikh population, predominantly Sikh. And they were big, powerful people who were very martial in their character and still are, in fact. So one of those, because Hazrat Masih Maud Salam's father had a family estate and he was a very respectable figure in the area, the big people from around used to come. And once a Sardar, he inquired from his father, I have heard, I'm surprised that you have also another son by the name of Ghulam Ahmad, but he is never seen. Where does he live? He said, go to the mosque. He may be wrapped in the matting of the mosque, because this is where he lives, this is where he sleeps. I don't know what he does. This was his early childhood. Then when he started pursuit of knowledge of Islam as well as other religions, then he came out with his debates with Christians, with Aryas, with other Hindus, with Sikhs. Right and left he started pleading the cause of Islam's truth. And then he began to rise to fame. Then he wrote a great book by the name of Brahine Ahmadiyya, which he promised would be published in 50 volumes, but only 5 were published, and the remaining could not, because then he got engaged, what happened later on, so heavily in the task of involvement from every side. So people think that he did not fulfill his promise, and this is one of the allegations against him. Very small, minor thing, because he is the author of more than 100 books. So the title may not be Brahine-Ahmadiyya, but they are all Brahine-Ahmadiyya. See? About Christians, about Hindus, about this, about that, and all sorts of challenges were taken up by him. So I always look at this small allegation, they mean small thing. They know that he fulfilled more than the promise, although not under the same title, in the same style. But arguments after arguments, he sort of, as if he was granted a limitless fountain of arguments which kept on flowing forever. But we'll come to that later. The first book, Brahine-Ahmadiyya, made such a great, let's say, not uproar, but it was something which shattered the peace of the time. Something had happened, like a volcano it erupted. And it had 2 astounding effects. One, the Muslims suddenly realized that here we have the champion for the cause of Islam, which we had been missing for so long. Now comes the man. Now we'll see how Christians and Hindus and other people of other faiths will go on blemishing Islam with their allegations, etc., without any real genuine defense. Now we have got a champion, a hero, who is going to counter-attack with such force, and nobody can defend him, defend his own faith against Islam, as presented by Hazrat Mirza. This was the general consensus. He started receiving letters of appreciation and love from all over India, from north to south, east to west. People, of even great scholars, submitted to his superiority in Islamic knowledge and his art of defense. And people paid him such glowing tributes, not ordinary people, the leaders among the Muslims, like Muhammad Hussain Batalvi, and there's so many others, who published resounding praises, which were absolutely scintillating praises in support of what he did for Islam. Muhammad Hussain Batalvi, for instance, in his review, Ishad Sunnah, Ishad Sunnah, I have mentioned it before, but I'll briefly refer to it now again. He wrote a long article which, in short, claimed and made a repeated claim that since the demise of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah, including the whole history of Islam, imagine, including the Sahaba who followed him, till this day, none has defended Islam like he has done. And he said, lest you should think that it is an oriental hyperbole, mubalgha. I'm saying things, lifting them beyond their real status. I'm adding praises which are not genuine and due. I'm only exaggerating. He says, lest somebody should think that I'm indulging in hyperboles. Hyperbole is a praise which is extremely exaggerated. Let me remind you, every word of what I say is based on truth and my personal knowledge. If anybody disputes this claim, then bring a single example from the entire history of Islam of a man who has served the cause of Islam like he did, with his word, with his honor, with his knowledge, with his life, with all his possessions. And the arguments, absolutely irrefutable. Now this was the fame which he accrued not intentionally, but it happened to rise spontaneously the moment people began to realize what that man was and what were his capabilities. And then he claimed one night he received a revelation from Allah, and that was that Isa Masih ibn Maryam Rasulullah फौत हो चुका है और उसके रंग में रंगीन होकर मैं आया हूँ, तू आया है, जिस वजह हैं हाँ, और वादे के मौफिक तू आया है. He said, I received a strange revelation from Allah that Jesus Christ, son of Mary, is dead, and the promise was not wrong. Exactly in accordance with the promise, you have come to fulfill the prophecy of the advent of Jesus Christ again. This was absolutely unacceptable by the world of Islam. They rejected it with one accord. And the same Maulvis and newspapers who used to support him and sing his praises, they were so bitter against him. Then the same Maulvi Muhammad Hussain Batalvi, who had claimed that don't you sing this in oriental hyperbole, he went from town to town in India, from south to north and north to south, east to west, and then across the borders of India into Mecca and Medina, and collected edicts against Hazrat Masih Maud Islam. For 1400, in the last 1300 years, he said, a champion of Islam? Such worst man was never born. Such a filthy enemy of Islam, such a liar, such an impostor, who fabricated things as ilham. So his life is forfeit, and he said he collected stamps of the mullahs, Arabs as well as non-Arabs. He said, this is what I have done now to undo the shameful act of praising him. Then he claimed, it is me who raised him from earth to heavens, and it is me who is going to bring him down from heaven back to earth. Imagine. And what happened? This man lost all his fame. He dropped from his supposed heaven down to earth. And Hazrat Masih Maud Islam was lifted from fame to fame, from higher status to higher status, until within his sight many Arabs became Ahmadi Muslims. Many migrated to Qadian, some migrated to Qadian. Many Syrians became Muslims, many Egyptians became Muslims, many English people became Muslim, many Americans became Muslim. And it went on spreading. So this is the story of every prophet. There is no change whatsoever. Scan the whole history and you will not find a single change. It's a big subject. It's going to occupy a long...
Inshallah. Inshallah. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.